Okay, it's VA Master John Curtis, and today I'm looking at the great Viktor Korchnoi, one of the greatest, or probably the greatest player to have ever lived that was never a world chess champion. Viktor Korchnoi. I'm going back to the Russian Championship, it's the United Soviet Socialist Republic, or USSR Championship of 1960. And it was then that Viktor Korchnoi got 14 points out of 19 games, and I believe he won the last 3 to take the title clearly. And he had some very notable opposition in that tournament, and people like Petrosian and Spassky that were further down the list. And today I'm going to show you the game Viktor Korchnoi versus the great Boris Spassky. And Boris Spassky was to go on to play Bobby Fischer. He was to go on to be the world chess champion and to lose his title to the great Bobby Fischer in that historical match in Reykjavik, 1970. But a tribute to these two wonderful gentlemen, Viktor Korchnoi and Boris Spassky, and we're going to have a look at this game. They played quite a few times. I was looking at some of their games, and as it is, Viktor Korchnoi opened up with d4, and Boris replied with d5, and c4 was played by Viktor. Knight f3. So we're just playing a standard type of game. I'm playing the what type of opening is this one now? This is the queen's pawn for white. It's Queen's Gambit accepted, the Janowski variation. Janowski, Janowski, and he's one of the old masters, the old great masters. D takes C, knight to f3, knight to f6, book moves as we can see, e3, bishop g4. So even at that time, this is a modern chess.com chess engine, the analysis room, and even at that time they'd already developed their skills to play the best moves. Bishop c4 and e6, a book move. Castles, a3 was played. The engine says bishop e7 is better, but I'm sure Boris is not too concerned at this stage. The reason for beginners to have played a bishop e7 in this move is simply to castle and protect your king. Right? That's what you'd be looking at. If you were a beginner and you had this position and you had to make a decision as to what to do, well, logic would be to play bishop e7, just castle and protect your king. Okay? So queen to e2 is played. The engine suggesting knight c3. And what Boris wants to do is he wants to get a plan to play rook to d1, protect his d pawn and thrust his e pawn forwards and get a big centre and open up his bishop so that he gets a wonderful, nice, free game. So that's what Viktor Korchnoi wants to do. So it's very, very classical in its nature, this particular position. So rook to d1, star move, best move, just as I described. And he wants to move forwards. And he's happy to take his time. And it's really important in chess to take your time with your plan and to follow through on it and execute it in a timely manner. You don't want to overreach your position. So bishop d6 is played by black, completing black's development so that he can castle and connect his rooks and queens and bring his major pieces into the game. Viktor Korchnoi plays h3 with the idea of attacking the bishop and hoping that the bishop would take the knight. But It's unlikely, and I was right. The best move, and the engine agrees, is bishop h5. e4 is now played. Okay, so in this position, Boris has got the black pieces, and you can see that good old Viktor Korchnoi wants to come through and push a pawn there. That's the threat. Push a pawn there, protected by a pawn, and this white pawn here would then fork those two pieces. And it's very, very basic, but and obviously world champions would see this sort of position. But this is just explaining it to the beginners that that's a real threat. And we'll see what he does. He takes the knight, and the queen recaptures, and he plays e5. Okay. Now, why would he play e5 in that position? Well, what he's doing is he's making a stab for the black squares. You see, he's got a knight on a black square, he's got a pawn on a black square, he's got a bishop on a black square, pawn over here on a black square, queen's on a black square. And white's got bishops covering white squares, and he's got the queen covering a few white squares and the pawn covering white squares. So it's black squares versus white squares. And we'll see something going on here. White plays queen to g3. Star move. So Korchnoi gets straight into him and he says, well, look, I want to play queen takes g7. What are you going to do about that? And let's have a look and see what he does. Well, he plays queen e2. The engine says you should castle, buddy. Now, if you do castle, like the engine says, the plan is to play, say you castle, well, the plan is to play bishop to h3 and attack the g-pawn. Now, that can be defended several ways. It is the best move. It can be defended several ways. It's got knight to e8, and that's not the best move, but there's one way to defend it. But there is another way to defend it, and that's knight to h5. Okay, and so that would attack the queen and attack the bishop. And we get a whole lot of complexity after queen to g4. Okay, we get a lot of complexity in the position after queen to g4. Now, black is better handled to go into this type of complexity because white's still a bit blocked down here with the knight. This knight's not out and the castle's not out. They're not moving. And so even though the position would be awkward and everything, and white would certainly disrupt black's position, the overall outcome would be that black should be all right because he's got superior development. So let's go back to the position and see what happened. So black selected not to castle, but to play queen e7. Now, the whole idea is, theoretically, that black's happy with his development. He's got his knight on the e4 square anyway. He's still attacking this pawn here as well. So Boris is saying, well, okay, you can take that pawn if you like, but I can simply play rook hits queen if you take the pawn. And after rook here, rook hits queen, you're going to have to retreat, and I'll just take that pawn in the middle or do something of that nature. So let's see what white does. Let's see how the great Viktor Korchnoi plays this game. Well, he pushes the pawn. And he's decided, in his wisdom and experience, that he'll just go for a minor spatial advantage, and he will be happy to concede that he's holding the white squares with a bit of space, and black can have the black squares, and we'll see who comes out best. So he plays knight to c3 after the knight goes to d4. As you can see in this position, the knight was threatening knight hits rook. So that's why he plays knight there. so that his rook has now got a square where the knight's just vacated from. And he's got all these pieces developed. Yeah. It's a very, very interesting position here because the position seems to have stabilised somewhat. And though it's stabilised, White's still got this niggling threat of queen takes g7. And it must have been so annoying for Boris to have to face that move. He's not taking it, but at the same time, Boris has had to capitulate some squares in the middle of the board. I'd like to thank Ashma Guest for now following. I didn't mean to stream, I'm just recording, but recording for a YouTube video. And certainly you're quite welcome to watch this if you're watching me stream, but I won't be able to go into the chat and talk to you. I'm looking at the game between the great Viktor Korchnoi and there's Victor's photo there. Oh, you probably won't be able to see his photo. Oh, yeah, the great Viktor Korchnoi's photo. You won't be able to see it. But I'll be posting it on the site, on the YouTube site, FM John Curtis Chess on YouTube when I'm finished this video. What I'm talking about is I'm talking about this game is played in the great 1960 United Soviet Socialist Republic Chess Championship. So that was the greatest chess country in the world at that particular time, back in 1960. And the great Viktor Korchnoi won the tournament with 14 out of 19. Okay, let's see what he does. He plays g6. Engine says knight to h5 again, just to try to displace that queen, and maybe the position might go to a draw. Positions now after the g6 move, the engine's saying that White's got a big initiative now after bishop g5. As you can see by the bar on the side of the board, it's favouring White. Let's have a look and see what would have happened if Boris had played knight to h5. So in this position, knight to h5. Okay, knight to h5 was played. You can see the position would have been equal. Pretty much equal. So that was a far superior move. However, bishop to g5 was played. And now White's got an initiative. These little squares here, these little black squares, could be targets later on. I don't think White's actually threatening to take the knight. There's no threat there to take the knight. I think it's more about trying to induce a weakness to chase the bishop away. So Black's virtually saying, well, if you want to hit me with the pawn, play h6, and I'll just run away and you've got another weak little square that I might be able to take advantage of later. So the queen goes back to d8. It's a double question mark, exclamation mark move. It says it's an inaccuracy and castles is the best. The reason why he moves back is he's hoping that he can play bishop here, I suppose, but the problem is this central pawn. So he's getting a little bit overloaded. Queen to h5 is a massive threat. So let's see what was played. Queen to h5. It's an inaccuracy, and f4 was the best move. Okay, why play f4? Well, after you play f4, yes, pawn takes pawn can be played, but notice the castle would be on. So in other words, yes, it's a problem. Yes, it's a real problem. Okay, so after f4, if pawn takes pawn, queen to h4 wins. Okay. So what's played here is queen to h4, and the bishop retreats to e7. Okay. Now f4 is played with the idea that if you take the pawn again, rook takes knight can be played. So now black's in desperation here. This is as early as move 17. Black's in trouble, and he realises that his advanced knight, which is on black's half of the board, on black's half of the board, it's his position's overreached a little bit, and his knight can't exactly retreat. So he's gone forwards, hoping to attack this castle in the corner, and then flip back to the e3 square, attacking both the rook and the bishop on c4. So that's his plan. But pawn takes pawn is played, so that the best laid plans of mice and men, as they say. And pawn takes pawn simply threatens pawn takes knight. So Boris retreats his knight on d7, thinking, well, I'm attacking your castle. And if you just change bishops, then you can still have this dreadful problem of me occupying your e5 square and playing the move knight e3. There's something to be said for that. So what brilliancy has Viktor Korchnoi got up his sleeve? So he takes the bishop, fair enough, and the queen recaptures, fair enough, and queen takes queen check. Well, we still have some problems here, don't we? And what are the problems? Well, the rook's still attacked. And one would think that black looks fairly good. But Viktor Korchnoi has got a brilliancy here. d6 check. Okay, so what he's saying is, yes, you can win the exchange, but I've got an almighty attack coming down here, down the middle of the board with my pawns, as though they're only 2 pawns, a bit weak. He's saying, I've got an attack. Well, pawn takes pawn I would think that you would take that. You wouldn't want him to get a pawn on the 7th rank, but he's playing king g8, and the engine says that that's the best move. That's amazing, isn't it? I would have probably taken the pawn off myself. And the engine says that there's not much difference between the two moves. It actually says king f8 is the best move. Oh, well, that's why Boris Spassky went on to be a world chess champion, right? So pawn takes pawn is played. And now knight takes pawn is played, okay? And now one would think again that in this position, white would be just about lost. Because after all, knight takes rook is threatened, and knight takes bishop is threatened. Correct or incorrect? Anyway, next move is rook hits knight. Okay, so he hits that knight, and now knight to b5. Well, let's have a look at this. If knight takes bishop, the rook can take the knight, and knight fork here doesn't work because of rook checks. Okay, that's why it doesn't work. It's with check. Okay, so let's go back. So rook hits knight, and the knight goes away. Okay. Now white's winning this position because this pawn on the 7th rank is so deadly. So the knight goes to d5, it holds the pawn, attacks the knight, and threatens knight to b6. Knight to d5 is the best move. The engine's got the arrow pointing to bishop e2 as the alternative move. Knight to c6 is played. And now we're soon going to see this knight to b6. There it is. That's a killer punch. Point being, we're going to win the exchange because after all, pawn here in this position would win a piece. So black has not much choice but to get his king back into the action with king e7. And now bishop hits knight. Well, he knows he could take the rook at any time, but he would lose the pawn. So Korchnoi just turns on the pressure and threatens the old bishop takes knight. So the rook goes there because he knows he's got to eliminate that c pawn because it's going to choke him to death. So bishop takes the knight first, and that's a whole piece. So you've got no choice but to recover that with the pawn. And then now rook takes pawn. He could take the knight, which is the best move, but he decides to take the pawn. Okay. The f6 is played, and that's the best move because he wants to support this knight here. It's a tower of strength. Even though black might be the exchange down, this knight is so powerful it's like a rook. So knight takes, rook takes, and now rook here. And the a pawn gives white a pass pawn. Can't be stopped. Right, so that when we look at this position, we've got 5 pawns for white, and we've got 4 pawns for black. So we've got 5 pawns, but we've also got the exchange up. So it's a resignable position. And the position continued. Rook hits pawn, b3 is played, holds the pawn, h5, just trying to expand the pawns, go to a masterful ending. And now the rook just goes to the 8th rank, and eventually he knows, white knows that he's just going to surround everything and take everything off because he's got the power of all these pieces. Pawn forwards was suggested. Rook attacks the pawn, he pushes it, he sacrifices it, he says, oh, I've got to get that out of the way. He takes it off, gives him a check, he goes back to e2, and now rook to g3, and it's in that position that Boris Spassky resigned. He knew that the position was lost. There's just too much material for white. Okay? I think white could just go there and win pretty easily. See what the engine thinks about that move. Star move, best move. Well, that's right. The rook takes pawn check is the only threat he's got, and this pawn should theoretically just march through. It's because you've got rooks behind passed pawns, basic chess. One other game I'd like to show you from the USSR Championship is the movie that is the film that was the game that was used in the film From Russia with Love. And that game was played in the USSR Championship of 1960, won by the great Viktor Korchnoi. And I've got a little bit of a history here. I'm just going to go in here. That game was between, I think it's there. Oh, where was it? 1949, USSR Championship, 1960. It might be in there. So I'm just going to trot in here and have a little look. No, it's not there. But it was played as From Russia with Love, and it was the game between, it might have been Polygaevsky and Korchnoi or something. But that was the game. So it was just back there. History, USSR Championship 60. I think it was just database. No, wrong one. History. USSR Russian Championship. Yeah, so it's 1960. In 1960. This is the big one. 1960 USSR Russian Championship. As I say, it was held in February 60. It was preceded by the semi-final events at Chelyabinsk, Tallinn, according to Wikipedia. Played in St. Petersburg, Russia. And chessgames.com has a very good coverage of it. And that's the tournament block. I hope you can see that. Yeah, there we go. And that's the USSR Championship 1960. As you can see, Korchnoi won with 14 points. Geller got 13.5 and tied equal second with Petrosian. And as I read it, Korchnoi did win those last 3 games. And there was 20 of the Soviet Union's best grandmasters and masters participated in the event. And Mikhail Tal was absent because of his preparation for the World Championship match with Botvinnik. So other than that, one of those two could have given it a bit of a shake. Certainly Mikhail Tal could have, the great magician, he could have given it a real shake. It was in those days, I did a video earlier how the magician Mikhail Tal beat the great Bobby Fischer 4 times way back in 1959, 1960, when Bobby Fischer was learning from the Russians and ascending to the pinnacle of chess, the World Chess Championship. He was to win from Boris Spassky at Reykjavik in 1970, 72 or whatever. Yeah, so that's interesting. Oh, here's the game. It was Boris Spassky and David Bronstein in the 16th round. So Boris Spassky and David Bronstein. We can have a look at that. Whoops, where are we? Boris Spassky, David Bronstein. And Spassky. It was played in 1960. So it was played in 1960. There's David Bronstein. There's David Bronstein there. We'll go back to 1960. And that would be the game that was played in the movie From Russia with Love. I wonder which one it was. The 16th round. Was it this one? Oh, can't tell. 1960, they played 2 games. One was a 23-move win. Oh, I think that it might be might exactly be the game. Oh, this one was played in Leningrad. So the first one was played in Leningrad. The draw was played in Argentina. So it must have been the one played in Leningrad. In 1960, say 59, that was Tbilisi. So From Russia with Love, well, I'm not too sure about that. Might leave that for another video. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank you for tuning in today. We'll have a look at this one anyway. Have a look at the great Boris Spassky versus David Bronstein, played in 1960. Oh, St. Petersburg, this a bit. It was put down as 1961. So this would be the one. It might have just gone over December or something like that. So this would be the move, the game that was played in the From Russia with Love film between Boris Spassky and David Bronstein. It's just a draw. It was played in Baku. Oh no, this was played in Azerbaijan. Can't get it right, can I? I'm doing my best, but it says St. Petersburg. Well, St. Petersburg's in Azerbaijan, is it? Oh, well, there you go. So Baku, Azerbaijan. This is a draw. Oh, well, opening classical. I might be in the St. Petersburg defence, I think, going on about analysis, computer analysis. We can learn something all the time from these great players, can't we? It always pays to go back over the old Russian championships and the like. Yeah, it's called the St. Petersburg variation. Yeah, the St. Petersburg variation. Oh, there you go. And that was the end of the game there. Whole idea is he plays knight to e2 with the idea of bishop takes knight, knight takes bishop. Okay, thank you very much for coming in. If you liked the video, please thumbs up and subscribe to the video if you want to see more videos or get more notifications from me about future videos. Today I did play a women's grandmaster. She was only rated 2,116. And it's a shame that they've been given the title of grandmaster when, actual fact, the strength of the women with the grandmaster title is far removed from any actual grandmaster, or the name, that coveted name of grandmaster that we hold so dearly in our hearts when we play through the games. Because it's just, as Judith Polgar, the greatest woman that ever lived, once said, I don't want the women's grandmaster title, I want the grandmaster title. I think in days like this where women are to be treated equal to men, and they're just as smart as men, we all know that women are just as smart as men, then why shouldn't they compete for the grandmaster title, not the women's grandmaster title, which you've only got to have a rating of, say, 2,300 for, right? So it's not even a FIDE master strength, right? Way below even international master strength. It's so low, it's a joke. It really is a standing joke that some of these players running around with ratings of 2,100 call themselves grandmaster, but whether they be women or men. Okay, it was bad enough that years ago a number of Bulgarians and stuff would fix tournaments or fix results so they could get their grandmaster titles because it was worth a few dollars to them. And some of them got caught out, and some of them may have obtained their grandmaster titles. They might have got their grandmaster titles anyway, but the system is there because the chess playing world hold the title of grandmaster as a coveted position that of dignity and honour and all the rest of it that goes with it. And we know women scientists and the like, they don't get a second. If you're a doctor of psychology, you're a doctor of psychology. You're not a women's doctor of psychology or a men's doctor of psychology. And it's the same with mathematics. If you're a professor of mathematics, you're not a women's professor of mathematics with a lower rating than a man that has a man's professor of mathematics title. Well, what's the difference with chess? That's what I say. And I say, well, take away those women's grandmaster titles, or at least the name grandmaster. Call them something else, women's candidate grandmaster, or keep it down where it belongs. But that name grandmaster, I respect grandmasters, real grandmasters, because I've got a hiding from them. I'd love to be a grandmaster, but I know I haven't got the ability to reach that high standard in my life. So I respect grandmasters, and I absolutely love to play through their games, and I respect all the hard work that they've done to achieve this coveted name of grandmaster. So it's about time women fought for the open grandmaster title, because women have come so far. They've got their equality now. They're fighting for their equality in wages, and we can understand that on a number of levels in a number of different countries. And I think their equality, they can't expect their equality to stand up until they stand up and do what's right and give away those fake grandmaster titles. With that, I'm going to end this video. And I'm going to say goodbye, God bless, and I'll see you in my next YouTube video and on Twitch live on FM John Curtis Chess.